Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. So this video, or should I say the next sequence of videos are about a topic which I already wanted to discuss for some time, because I have already received over the past couple of weeks and even the past few months several messages from followers and other people on LinkedIn talking about the charter, the CFA Charter, and whether it's still worth it to go through all that journey and the sacrifice and the effort that comes with it. And even though my answer has been always not very conclusive, because it depends on so many factors from person to person. And so I decided that, given the recent actions, as you can see right here, the recent actions of the CFA Institute, I think it's worth it to discuss this. And I hope that this will shed some light on the reasons why the CFA Charter may be losing its value, and why, depending on the situation of everyone, of every single person in particular, may or may not be worth it to pursue. And so I'm going to discuss these topics, several topics that I feel that are important based on the recent actions by the CFA Institute. And I hope this makes it more clear for everyone who is considering going through the CFA program to really make a better decision when it comes to actually doing it, or if their efforts are better off pursuing something else. And so this is what I wanted to discuss in this next sequence of videos. First of all, the format of these videos, this is a big video that I will break down in multiple and short segments to make it more palatable, more digestible for everyone. And basically, one segment of the video talks about one factor leading to the CFA potential loss of value or prestige. In my view, I think these factors, or these actions by the CFA Institute, degrade the value of the CFA Charter. But of course, it's my personal opinion. And also, even though some factors are closely related, I think it makes sense to talk about them in isolation, because they bring their own impacts to the equation, and I think they must be assessed by themselves anyway. So that's why I think this is the best way to proceed when it comes to how this video should be presented. And so, before diving into the first topic, I want to make this disclaimer. This is something that I think is absolutely critical, all right, for me to present something like this. The views and opinions discussed in here are exclusively mine. I received no kickbacks, no payments from anyone to say this. This is basically my personal opinion, and given my assessment as a CFA Charter holder about what it was before and after these actions by the CFA Institute were carried out. And so I'm going to be basing my facts on publicly available information, and that's clear. That's as clear as it can possibly be. I will not make any judgment, so I will basically stick to the facts. And this comes, of course, as I mentioned, in the context of several queries I received recently, and this does not mean, or this video and the segments that to which are broken the video is broken down, is not intended to incentivize or dissuade any specific decision or action by the viewers regarding either career or professional designation. So please consider this as someone who is laying out the facts, and then it's up to the viewer to make a decision on whether they should proceed and to undertake the CFA program, or if they should not go for it, or if you are already in the middle of your journey, if you should give up, or if you should continue. All right, this is something that it's up to the person to decide, and not to me. All right, so The first one, first of all, the CFA Institute approach basically was over the past few years, I think ever since, I would say post-COVID, ever since the COVID-19 pandemic hit, the CFA Institute has acted in ways that seem geared, first of all, to increase their revenue and maximize the reach and the reach of the CFA Charter, and maximize the number of applicants and or candidates and charter holders. And however, even though these intentions may be good intended and all that, and I believe they must be, because of course they don't want to shoot themselves in the foot. However, these goals carry some unintended and, in my view, adverse outcomes, including the loss of value and prestige of the CFA Charter. And I want to start, this is the first segment, by the fact that now we have multiple exam windows over a year. So before 2021, as you, if for the folks who don't remember, we had an exam window in June, all right, for the 3 levels, and then in December we had another window which was only for level 1 candidates. But ever since 2021, post pandemic, in the aftermath of the first few waves of the pandemic, the exam windows changed, more windows opened, and there were some changes ever since then. But currently, and you can check this information on the 300 Hours website, you can also check it on the CFA Institute website, there will be from now on 4 windows. So in February for levels 1 and 3, in May for levels 1 and 2, in August for all 3 levels, and in November for levels 1 and 2 again, similarly to May. And of course, a new rule has emerged, which is called the so-called 6-month rule. So candidates can only sit for the same exam, be it level 1, level 2, level 3, up to two times per calendar year, when it's of course applicable. So if you go for level 1 in February and you fail, you cannot apply for the level 1 exam in May. Why? Because it's not 6 months have not yet passed, and so you have to go either for the August one or the November one. All right. And if you, for example, if you go sit in the August one and you fail, you cannot sit for the one in November, and so you can only apply or sit for the level 1 exam again in February of next year. And so you cannot go for consecutive windows or windows that are less than 6 months apart. All right. And so, all right, this rule is fair enough, because otherwise there would be it would probably not be very feasible for candidates, because the candidates would not be able to really digest what went wrong with their exam and study and prepare for the next one, which I think this rule, if they want to apply these changes, these windows, I think it makes sense to have this rule in place. However, as the situation stands at the moment, and I think this is a very, very important point to make, is that now, currently, given the situation, there are several issues or outcomes with this change. As a candidate, and you have to put yourself in the shoes of a candidate to really perceive these outcomes. Now, there is less of a penalty for failing an exam, because it can be repeated sooner. And why is this less of a penalty? Because before, if you recall, if you go for level 1 in June, you had to wait 6 months for the December, all right, which is fair enough. So you still have a 6-month window if you are a level 1 candidate. But if you are a level 2 or a level 3 candidate, you have to wait an entire year to repeat the exam. This is no longer the case. So if you are a level 2 candidate in May, you can still apply for November, 6 months in 6 months time. If you fail, you can sit for the exam 6 months later, in May of next year. So, and for level 3 is the same thing. If you sit for the exam in February, you can go for the August one, because it's more than it's at least 6 months apart. And then if you fail again, you can go back to the February next year and try to repeat the exam. So there is less of a penalty. All right, now you can you can sit for the exam again always within 6 months. And if you were whereas if you're a level 2 or level 3 candidate before 2021, you had to wait a full year. And so now you carry less of a penalty, so you are under less pressure if you because if you know that if you fail the exam, you can repeat it within 6 months anyway. And because of this, failing candidates, and this is the second reason, now are able to leverage more the knowledge acquired for the first exam. So because you study it, you fail the exam, but still you retain some information, some good information from your study, and now you can leverage this information for the new exam 6 months later. Whereas in the previous format, you had to wait for a whole year. So if you don't continue to study through that entire period, you will most likely forget almost everything. And so this is an important point, because now the hiatus between exams is shorter, so the knowledge you acquired studying for the previous exam, you can still recycle it and use it for the coming exam, because the exam comes much sooner. And also this takes some additional work out of your preparation, because some topics that you know very well, even though you failed the exam overall, some topics that you know very well, you may not need to devote that much attention to them. And so this makes the preparation process easier for the second, for the third, or for the fourth exam, and so on and so forth. And now, because of this, the CFA program can now be concluded in much less time. As you can see, and I point this out in here, you can go through the program and become a CFA Charter holder, go through all 3 exams in 1 year. Because, for example, if you go for level 1 in February, you pass, then you can apply for the level 2 in August, all right? And assuming you pass, you can then sit for the level 3 in February of next year. So this takes only 1 year. Whereas the fastest route before 2021 was to apply for December of a given year in December, and then you have to sit for August next year, in June next year for the level 2, and then you had to wait a full year for the level 3. So this basically means that it has become you still have to take more time to sit for the exam. This is wrong, because actually this is not 2.5 years. This is 1.5 years, because you make the exam. You have 6 months to prepare for the level 2 in December. You have 6 months apart between level 1 and level 2, but of course we are not counting with the period of preparation anyway. But this is 1.5 years instead of 2.5. So my apologies. This is 1.5, but still it's a shorter time period. And what this exactly means from a perspective of a candidate, and I did this of course myself, is that the longer it takes, I think it has an advantage. You emerge much more into the content, and you learn it more in a way that you will remind this for a longer period of time over the future. Whereas if you go through the program much faster, for example 1 year, the impact that it has is that you will go through all the topics in preparation for your exam, and you are more likely to forget the content of the program once you finish all 3 exams and you don't pick up the books anymore. So because the process before was longer, candidates were able to retain more information long after the exam is over. And I think that then over the course of a career, this can make a difference between several topics that you may be less familiar over the course of your career. All right, because if, for example, if you work in fixed income or in equities, and you don't work with the derivatives, if for some reason in your job you have to deal with an issue when it comes to derivatives, you are more likely to to recall the information that you study about derivatives if the program took longer, because you took more time to deal with the subject. Whereas with a shorter program, the information, of course, was retained for the exams, but because it was acquired over a shorter period of time, you are more likely to forget it. And so, as a result of all this, and of course, in the context of this on this factor, I believe that in this aspect, the CFA Charter has become easier to attain. Of course, there are several reasons, several more reasons that I will explain in other segments, but this is basically the main message of this video. So stay tuned for the next segment.